The making of very high quality brown stock is something that was once considered a fundamental of all kitchens, but now it's pretty much a lost art, as kitchens, restaurants are relying on prepackaged products, but they're not the same at all. In professional recipes, when you encounter the term best quality brown stock as an ingredient, it's calling for a standard that's actually even higher than that from Escoffier's brown stock. Best quality goes back further to Antoine Carême, who was known as the chef of kings and the father of high quality French cuisine. He would use vast quantities of meat to prepare sauces because he had an unlimited budget. That's what is really being called for when you are told to use best quality beef stock in older books. I've got the other things prepared for the stock. This is the onions. One onion. I'm just going to put a couple of cloves into it. Same thing with the other piece. And we've got some mixed herbs, not too critical what they are at this stage, just tied with a string. Some carrots. I'm using celery root instead of celery. There's no particular reason. You can certainly use celery if you want. I like celery root. I've got it on hand. And a couple of cloves of garlic. Of course, the classic would never call for garlic, but times change. Garlic used to be feared as a terrible something only peasants would eat. That those days are long over. So I put a couple of cloves of garlic in it. You don't even have to peel them carefully because it's all going to be filtered later anyway. And brown. I didn't mince these, I just cut them up into reasonable sized pieces. We're going to cook these in butter until they actually have some brown on them. It's part of the flavor. And I put the garlic in there too. And this is good looking. You get some good brown on there. That's good. Here's the meat after about 45 minutes in the oven, 200 with the fan assist on, 200 Celsius that is. I'm going to transfer these pieces, bone with little fragments of meat, into the cold water. This is cold water, has not been heated at all yet. And leave the fat that accumulated in the pan that the bones were roasted in. We're gonna deal with that in a minute, but right now just pull the bones out and leave that fat behind. Then we're going to add the onions that were spiked with the cloves, herbs, a bunch of herbs, and then we've got these carrots and celery root and garlic that were brown. I'm going to put those in, but I'm leaving the majority of the butter behind. Don't have to get too careful about it, but there's no point in adding a bunch of fat to it. This is the pan that the meat was roasted in. I poured off all of the oil that I could, and now it's on the stove. It's on a high heat. And I'm going to glaze this with some vermouth. Yeah, not at all traditional, I know, but you don't have to worry about straining this either. You just want to cook it enough to get rid of the alcohol taste out of it. And the vermouth notes will play okay because it's just like extra herbs you added to it. Be careful. You probably want to use a glove to hold on to this. My fingers aren't too sensitive to being burnt, but don't go by that. This is very, very hot right now. As I'm holding the edge of this pan, though, it's hot. And when you're confident that you've got this, the smell of the alcohol is gone, and you've got as much of the solids as you can, just tip it up into the pan with the stock. And actually, let's just do it right now. Here's the pan with the stock. I'm going to pour it into there. And we're going to start heating the stock. We need to bring this up to a boil, and then we're going to reduce the heat down to a simmer. And it's been heating about an hour now on a medium-high flame, and without any stirring, except the initial stirring, of course. Now you accumulate some of the scum, and this has to be removed. You get a bowl of hot water, run the skimmer through this. If you make a mistake and you pick up a vegetable, just fish it back out, put it back in to the stock. repeat this. You try to get all the scum off of it. The scum is going to cook and turn dark and nasty. You don't disflavor your final stock. So this is important step. You can't skip. You want professional results. And this is where most of the scum ended up, in the hot water. Okay, now it's reasonably clear. I mean, you don't have to be anal about it and get every last little dot of scum, but this is fine. It's fine. Now I'm going to cover it almost completely. It's like this. There's a little crack here, as you can see along the top. And I'm going to turn the heat down so that it maintains a simmer. And I'm also going to move it to the back of the stove in a minute. And it's going to sit here at the simmer stage, almost completely covered, for about 12 hours. And the next morning, you'll see that this has got a layer of fat on the top of it. And you're going to scrape this off and to keep it. Now, this is called stock fat in the old books. And this is actually used for a number of cooking applications, including making stock. The next time just get the extra moisture off of this fat so it doesn't splatter everywhere. Leave this to drain for a minute. On a back burner, I've got the stock warming up. On the front burner, I'm going to use part of the stock fat. You don't need all of it. You can use some of it for another day, but I'm taking about 1/3 of it in this case. But you'll get different amounts of fat with different batches of stock. I get, like, I don't know, maybe 2-3 tablespoons there of the stock fat that I'm going to start melting and using for cooking the meat in. And now, over here, where the meat is. And I'm going to put some coarse black pepper on it. Because this is a stock, you don't normally ever put salt in this sort of stock, because it's understood that it's going to be reduced a lot later. And also, you don't want to end up having something with a mysterious amount of salt in it. So I'm taking the very unusual step here in cooking this meat that I will not be adding any salt to it. But what I am going to add is a little bit of garlic powder. Again, certainly not traditional at all, but I said before, the old traditions were garlic is only for peasants, and nobody with any taste would use any garlic. Plus, they didn't even have garlic powder back then. So it's just got a little bit of black pepper, a little bit of garlic powder on it. I've let it come up to room temperature. It's not really necessary. And now I got to wait until the fat melts. Let's take a look at that. Okay, it's melting, but it's not 2 seconds later. Of course, it's bubbling away. Now I'm going to put the meat in there and let it brown. I'm putting the bones. Notice I arranged this. I'm putting the bones in the center of the pan because I want them to cook the most. They're going to take the most heat to brown. And while this is browning, on the first side, I went ahead and cut up some carrots, onions, and celery root again. That's going to be used in a couple of minutes. The heat on the pan here, on the meat, is a number 7 out of 1 to 10. And we're going to check it. It's been a few minutes now. It's not sticking to the bottom of the pan, of course, there's so much fat there. This is good. This is a good amount of brown. And turn it around. Keep the bones in the center as much as possible. It doesn't have to be like charred black, but you definitely want to develop some caramelization on this before we continue. Okay, it's been sufficiently browned on both sides. Now I'm going to transfer the pieces of meat to the bone stock prepared last night. It was refrigerated, then we skimmed the fat from it, reheated it. It's in there now. Now we've got the pan with the hot fat. These vegetables are going to go in, and we're going to brown those a little bit. We're also going to scrape the bottom of the pan to deglaze it and try to pick up that fond onto the vegetables. These don't have to be cooked super well, but we definitely want to pick up the fond from the bottom of the pan. That's the main point. And when you're satisfied you've got most of the fond off of there, and you've got this pan that's got the meat in it, we're going to add the vegetables to it. There it comes so close to the top. That's okay. Doesn't matter as long as it doesn't go over the top, of course. And we're also going to add to that fresh thyme would be nice in this case. I actually don't have any, so I'm going to use a little bit, 1 teaspoon of dried thyme. Also a couple of bay leaves. That's fine. And I'm just going to keep this at a simmer for a little while with partially covered, just like before, like yesterday. But we're going to remove the cover in a little bit. But for the first maybe hour, we're going to keep it partially covered. So now we've got it up to the boil part. We're going to turn the meat around a little bit, make sure that it's in the stock. And let's return it to the hob at a slightly lower temperature so that it won't be boiling away. It's got about another half hour to continue while it's still got the lid on, and then we'll remove the lid, turn the meat some more, and let it simmer away some more. Okay, it's been just under an hour. The stock is simmering now. This is the point where we're going to remove the lid. Now, you're going to have to periodically, you're going to have to turn the meat around and over, because as this continues to reduce, there won't be enough liquid to keep the meat submerged. So one of the requirements of making this is you're going to have to every once in a while turn over whatever meat's floating, got pieces floating up above the surface of the liquid, turn it back around again. This is going to continue cooking for a while longer, again on a slow simmer, but because now I've removed the lid, I'm going to have to increase the heat a little bit, because now there'll be heat escaping from above the surface, which there wasn't much before when the lid was on it, of course. So this is going to keep simmering. We're going to turn the meat over once in a while. I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. This is the amount of boiling that you want to see during a reduction. You don't want to have it vigorously boiling, or it'll boil out all the flavor and it'll pulverize the vegetables too, so that won't be good. So you want to have it at a good simmer, but only a good simmer. Okay, it's been about 2 hours and 45 minutes now of total cooking time. This meat is extremely tender. There is such a thing as overcooking your stock, and we definitely do not want to do that. Then it starts losing flavor and picking up some bitter tones and some other stuff that you don't want in there. So next thing rather is to pull off this meat. What are we going to do with this meat? Well, if you're cooking for the King of France, you'd probably throw it out the window and the peasants would get it and eat it. But you know, there are some other applications for it, but that's for another time. Right now we don't need it anymore, so we're just going to set it off to the side. Now the remainder of this has to be stripped, and do not want to rub these vegetables through the strainer as you would for a sauce, because what will happen is you get this really cloudy, nasty stock, and that's not what we're doing. These will just be tossed. They're not useful for anything. Cool this down. I've got a pot. I've got some water in there. I've got the bowl, and I'm going to cool the stock down, loaded with ice, and I'm going to there we go. The bowl is in contact with the ice. Now we're going to pour the stock that we just filtered into here. and begin chilling it down. This has to be done reasonably quickly, otherwise the stock will actually start spoiling, and that's definitely not what you want. So after we stir this around a little bit, get it cooled down, and it'll go into the refrigerator to finish cooling. And after it's been refrigerated for a while, you've got this sheet of fat that you just skim off. This is also stock fat, and you can use this for other things. But in the case of this, beef fat's not really very healthy for you. So there's occasional applications for it, but mostly this is thrown. Beef fat's like the worst kind of fat you can eat. So you just go around this, pick off the fat, and then you're going to transfer the rest of this to a saucepan. You're going to bring it up to a simmer. You're going to reduce it a little bit more. Now if you taste the stock at this point, it doesn't taste especially amazing. Remember, that's because it has no salt in it at all. If you want a fair taste of it, put a little bit into a little bowl or something, add some salt to it, and taste it. And then you get a better impression of what it's actually like. But don't put salt in all of it, otherwise you'll ruin it for all the other applications. And with this job too, you don't have to be completely anal and get every last little drop, unless you're working at a 3 Michelin star restaurant. Then I guess you want to get every last drop. But this is fine. We've taken almost all of the fat out of it, virtually all of the fat, and that's fine. Now it's just going to get heated up and used, cooked one more time, that is. And then we'll filter it and store it. And here it is in the saucepan. It's just starting to heat up. I'm going to let this reduce a little bit on a slow simmer. Here we have the finished stock the next day. As you can see, it's solid. It's like a gelatin, and you can pick it up. It's like thick like this, but it's very nice and clear. If you can see that in the video. Also look for my cocktail book, Cocktails of the South Pacific and Beyond, Advanced Mixology, available through Amazon online.